Good evening. My name is Serina, and welcome to my astrology video. This is my first video, so bear with me, and thank you for hanging out and listening to me talk about one of my favorite things. I'm just going to get right into it. Our topic today is kind of a deeper look at astrology and its value and deeper meaning and what it is. Now, I am by no means the expert end-all be-all on this topic, but I do know some things, and I am excited to get to share them with a larger audience. Astrology is a lot of things. People like to fight about whether it is a science or an art or a religion or a tool, a lot of different things. But astrology is a lot of things. It's all of those things. And it's a vast and ancient wisdom tradition is my favorite tagline right now, is astrology is a vast and ancient wisdom tradition. It is vast. It contains all of the psychological knowledge of antiquity. Jung said that. And on some level, it contains all of the knowledge of everything in the world. It's a way of learning about life in the world. Okay, so that's my definition of astrology. In a broad sense, it's a vast and ancient wisdom tradition. And it's based around the cycles of the heavenly bodies, the sun, the moon, and the planets, through the ecliptic, which is the path that the sun and moon and planets and stars appear to take across the sky from our vantage point here on Earth. So the many more mundane definitions of astrology might say that it's prescribing meaning. It's a system of study that prescribes meaning to the movements of the planets and their positions, and as opposed to astronomy, which maps the positions of the planets but does not prescribe any greater meaning to it. Other definitions of astrology might just include that it's the tracking of the heavenly bodies and looking for patterns in that and reporting on those patterns. People have been getting some sense of meaning from tracking the movements of the heavenly bodies for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, though humans have. The earliest evidence we have is about 30 to 33,000 years old, artifacts of people carving moon cycles and solar cycles and advanced other planetary cycle stuff into bone and caves and stone. In this slide here, I have this 30,000-year-old depiction of moon cycles in spiral serpentine patterns. 30,000 years old. And then I have another picture of the Nebraska sky disk, which is from Germany, from about 1600 BC, which is about almost 4,000 years ago. It's found at the top of a mountain in Germany and long believed a fake. This remarkable object is now accepted as a genuine artifact. It is the only piece of its kind in Central Europe and includes astronomical information relevant to its location. If you're listening and you can't see, it's kind of a really pretty, dark blue disc with kind of golden dots on it in a certain pattern, and a golden crescent moon and a circle, which appears to probably be the sun. Then also on the slide, we have the Venus de la Selle, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, from France, the 25,000-year-old fertility goddess Mother Earth figure from La Salle near Ézilles in France, was painted in red ochre and holds a crescent conch shape with 13 lines on it. It has been suggested that the 13 lines on the conch refer to the 13 lunar menstrual cycles each solar year. The object is currently on display at the Bordeaux Museum. So women especially have always had realized that their cycles are intimately connected to the celestial cycles, especially that of the moon, because we have 13 menstrual cycles and there are 13 moon cycles, and oftentimes the menstrual cycles actually line up directly with the moon cycles, and women will bleed on the new moon, and they will ovulate on the full moon. But that's just one part of that. But women, for the most part, have always realized that, and that's just your basic 101. We're connected to these heavenly bodies in some way, and I say always, women always have, but honestly, it's kind of sad because lately, for the past few hundred years, this knowledge has been lost, and I've known grown women that have no idea. They don't realize that their cycles time up with the cycles of the moon and are tied to the cycles of the moon, that there are 13 moon cycles a year and 13 menstrual cycles a year for each woman usually. And they don't realize how, as the moon pulls on the tides, it pulls on the fluids in a woman's body too. A woman's body is about 5% more fluid, more water than men's on average, whereas theirs is about 60%, ours is about 65%. And part of that is our reproductive what have you in the system is fluid, and the moon pulls on fluid cycles, and its cycles are caused by its relationship to where it is around Earth compared to us. Anyway, so astrology, people have been getting meaning out of the movements of the heavenly bodies for thousands of years, since the beginning of recorded human history. Some of the most early records of human writing, it is obvious that it is incredibly important to them, what was going on celestially. And there's even evidence that, Copernicus gets credited as, discovering that the sun is at the center of the solar system and not the Earth. But there's evidence that these ancient people, they knew. And it was just kind of rediscovered by Copernicus. Okay, so astrology, people have always gotten meaning out of the movements of the heavenly bodies. It's a vast and ancient wisdom tradition, and it contains so much knowledge that, anything I talk about here, whether I talked for hours or 15 minutes or 30 minutes, I'm just barely scratching the surface. But what's its value? Why do we like astrology? Why do we give it value? Why do people pay money to just read about it in books, to learn about it with teachers, to get personal, private consultations regarding their astrology? Again, I'm only touching on a small piece of this, but it's an important piece to me. And I argue that astrology is an ecotherapy, and that's in part of its greater value. Ecotherapies, in a nutshell, are therapies by which the mechanism of its therapeutic value is its ability to reconnect you to the greater organism of which you are a part. Earth is generally where we're going with that. And surveys and measures of emotional and mental wellness have found that one of the greatest markers, best indicators, and most valid signs of and predictors of mental and emotional wellness in a person is their feelings of connectedness to something bigger than them. And connectedness to others around them. So connectedness to others around them, connectedness to some kind of higher power, connectedness to the greater organism of which they are a part. And I argue with astrology, it connects you to not just the Earth as the greater organism of which you are a part, but the whole entire solar system, the whole entire galaxy, the whole entire universe. Astrology at its best can help connect make the person realize that they are connected to all this. Now, ecotherapies, so they seek to help a person connect to the greater organism of which they are part. And astrology is an ecotherapy, because it does this. It serves to help people understand that they are connected to the heavenly bodies. I'm just going to read something I wrote here. Astrology is a form of ecotherapy in that it serves to reconnect the individual with the living, breathing cosmos of which it is a part. The sky is alive. I propose that part of the mechanism by which it accomplishes this is through poetic archetypal language. So there are two main ways that I see astrology reconnecting people with the greater solar system of which they are part. Firstly, the animist lens it provides. The planets are alive and you are part of their larger living organism. Animist philosophies exist in greater congruence with astrology, in that animism perceives the environment as something that humans are a part of, not simply inside of. Thus, the stretch to the heavenly bodies and what we call space itself also being living natural places, something humans are participating in life with, is easy to make. Secondly, archetypal language and stories take the pressure off the individual's single story and broadens it and widens it. An individual can now see how their story they have been living in is connected to millions of other stories throughout time. It also provides an impetus through which one might discover alternative stories they could choose to live out. It's not just about poeticizing any single person's identity to them. It is also a way of poeticizing existence itself, everyone else's and the greater organism's identities to a person as well. Because archetypal symbolic language is kind of poetic at its best. And there's just something healing about poeticizing the world to people, which is what a good and in life, which is what a good astrologer is doing at their best. I get that idea from Adam Ellenboss. I have to credit him because he's the first time I heard anybody talk about astrology like that, that at their best, astrologers are poeticizing people's identities to them. And that he also compares, in that same vein, he compares astrology to music, which is done in a lot of different ways. But in regards to people questioning the value of astrology, or like, is it real, or do you believe in, or can you prove it? He compares it to somebody asking somebody to prove the beauty of one of Beethoven's sonatas, or any beautiful song, to prove the beauty of it, or to question the value of it. Like, what's the value of music, of beauty? It's like asking what's the value of beauty. It's kind of pointless. Well, I guess that's not exactly that. I mean, we can philosophize about that, but that there are no definite, like, hard and fast answers. You can't prove something is beautiful, and you can't prove something's value when the value is something like is coming from something like astrology and music and beauty and poetry and art. So that's how a way in which astrology is like art. It's like psychological art. Even though there are many ways in which it is like a science being the observation of phenomena, the recording of data, carrying out experiments to see, and then like extrapolating from the data from the experiments you're taking out what the meaning might be. And astrologers have definitely been doing that for a very long time. We've been following the movements of the heavenly body. So it's not just that, yes, it's serving the purpose of reconnecting us to this greater organism in which we're part. And how is it doing that? Because it works. It works. People hear things about themselves that's coming from this astrological language, and people hear things about things happening in their lives at certain times that is so synchronistic. Who is it that's talking about astrology as a science of synchronicity? Ren Butler. a science of synchronicity, because it's not just that we are assigning all this, it's not just all this flowery archetypal symbolic language. It's connected to something. It's connected to these astrological patterns, these mathematical configurations of this greater organism of which we are a part, are actually coinciding with meaningful happenings and events in our life. And that can feel super magical. For me, at least, that is its value. Is ever, I'm never ceasing to be amazed at the synchronicities with astrology, and that's what pulls me in. Is it reminds me of the magic in the world, that there's, it's like, whoa, there's stuff going on here that I can't see and that I don't understand. Like, nobody knows why at the core of it astrology works. Like, nobody knows, has, like, it's got theories about angles that planets make and the kind of energy waves that they're giving off that we can't see, but it's all theory. Nobody knows. It's a great mystery. And there's value in something mysterious too. They're talking about Mercury retrograde in Scorpio right now in November of 2019. Good time to reflect on the meaning of mystery and the value of thinking about mysteries. Like, we don't have all the answers with astrology of what it is, of why it works, but we've got some theories. There's also this part of astrology. I mean, the most common modern application of astrology is self-knowledge. So we can talk forever about the value of self-knowledge, of knowing about yourself insofar as this ego and this face and this personality, this role, this role that you're playing in this life. This is Serina, like that. We can talk about getting to know who Serina is, but we can also self-knowledge. If you go deep enough with self-knowledge, what you kind of find out is that you are this greater organism, that you're not Serina. You're connected to this vast cosmos, and you are a part of that. So that's self-knowledge, getting to know the true self, and it's bigger than this ego. Ego not being a bad thing. A healthy ego in this realm is actually a good thing, and the problems come when the ego is weak. The like mental and emotional problems can come when the ego is weak, and it looks like it's like a oh, they got a lot of ego going on. That's actually a lack of healthy ego. So when I say ego, I don't want there to be any negative undertones to ego. Ego is just, it's the mask you're wearing in this life, which is only temporary. This body, this self, is temporary. And that kind of leads me into astrology's value as a spiritual practice, and philosophical practice. When we're doing astrology, it can be very deep and very, very meaningful to people, and like a very spiritual thing. At the same time that it can be fun and light, and I can use astrology to figure out what color to paint my nails, which seems frivolous and shallow, but it's kind of a form of deeper magic too, like using colors. And astrology is very intimately connected with this concept of magic, and magic just being our ability to tune in to the world around us, and affect it in certain ways with our own consciousness. So if I know the sun's going to be in Cancer, and I associate the sign of Cancer with money, I might paint my nails green, to help put my mind in that place, along with the currents of the cosmos that are going around, to attract money to myself. And I might do it unconsciously. I might think, oh, green goes with this, and then realize later on all the deeper meaning around that. I digress though. So astrology, let's recap. It's an ecotherapy. It's kind of like music and art, in that its value is hard to define, but it definitely has value, and has value because it works. It's also a science in that it's observation of phenomena and collection of data, performing of experiments to test that data, and see how it works. And it's also spiritual tradition. I didn't get very deep into that. It's also a huge philosophical tradition. I don't know if that's the right word to use. It's full of philosophy. Astrology is full of philosophy. Astrology is full of all the psychological knowledge of antiquity. That's why it's great for self-knowledge, and that leads you to the bigger philosophy, the bigger picture stuff, that's kind of gets into a spiritual and maybe even religious place, like what is the nature of like reincarnation in you and the self. Like, does the self go on? Do you have past lives and future lives? Is this the only one? Fate, free will, and these are other topics that can be spoken about at length. So since it's supposed to be a rather short video, I'm not going to get deep into all of that, but astrology does contain that and give us an impetus through which to talk about and think about these things. And that's another part of the value of astrology is people love to be seen, just not only just having their identities poeticized to them, but just having a way to talk about themselves and certain things about themselves. You'll notice if I noticed my daughter's she's a teenager, she's 13, and sometimes they will share stuff on their social media, you know, like, tell me 3 things about me, or like these quizzes go around all the time that they have all kinds of details about you, like basic details about you. And without astrology, I feel like they're limited and less juicy. Like, you'll hear the same like 4 or 5 or less keywords repeated when people ask somebody to describe somebody to them over and over again. But with astrology, we all of a sudden have a whole lot more language at our disposal to talk about people and personalities and their lives. And people love that. We love that. We love getting to hear about ourselves and feel seen by somebody else, that somebody else is like, yeah, that is me. And you can see that this other person sees it. Astrology gives us an impetus through which to do that, through which to see other people. And that is valuable. I think I'm pretty much wrapping up on this, since I wanted this to just be kind of a brief video about this, to kind of get it rolling with me making more videos. I wanted to start with this base of astrology before I jump into all different other kinds of more frivolous pursuits with astrology. Now, I am very mercurial. Mercury rising astrology is the name of my gig. I was born with Mercury rising, and Mercury is, we have the word mercurial, which means like kind of all over the place. So I'm kind of all over the place. I do natal and birth chart astrology, where and how that might translate to my video making series is I might look at like celebrities' birth charts. Some people I like, people I don't like, people you like, people you don't like. I will maybe teach you about astrology and how to read charts through analyzing their charts. I might dip into mundane astrology, which mundane sounds like mundane, but actually it just means like talking about the astrology of current events basically all over the world, and of what different countries and cities might go through. Like if some place has some earthquakes or something, I might want to check out their chart of that place. And by doing that, then we get to learn maybe how to predict things like that, which is very, very, very elementary in its level of accuracy. I have to admit, but still fun to play with. And you can, at the very least, you know, astrology is archetypally predictive. Even if you can't predict exactly like they're going to have an earthquake there, you can see upheaval. You can certainly see times of upheaval and shocking change or turmoil and trauma, for sure, with mundane astrology. I also, in future videos, might just give kind of lecture lesson videos more about other arms of the philosophy or why or behind of astrology. And sometimes I might talk about just, you know, what's going on right now as it might pertain to different signs or everybody overall, not just specific places. Yeah, and if there's anything that you want me to talk about in a video, feel free to tell me in the comments. Feel free also in the comments to tell me what value astrology has had for you in your life, and what the deeper meanings of astrology are to you and what astrology is to you. Go visit my website, Mercury Rising Astrology. You can see a full list of the services and reports I'm currently offering. You can sign up for my newsletter. You can check out the podcast I just recorded with Kip DeBow for the Basement Astrologers on Tulsi Gabbard's nativity, who is currently running for president, along with a bunch of other persons. You could take my surveys that are on, they're just fun little sun sign or rising sign, moon sign surveys in my services offer tab. If you click on different services like the birth chart reading or this transits, weather report readings. And stay tuned. I'm going to start trying to put out a lot more videos. Again, thank you for listening to me talk to you about one of my favorite things, the vast and ancient wisdom tradition of astrology. And that's it. Good night.